And we're live. Welcome to Music Matters with Jason Tramm. We're so delighted that you can join us for our unique podcast community where we explore the issues and challenges in the musical and performing arts world as seen through the eyes of distinguished colleagues. In the past 85 episodes, we've explored artists who are finding new and innovative approaches to their art form and to the world in this incredibly challenging time for all the arts. And today we have a special show with a delightful opera singer slash aerialist who's combined her skills to make a truly unique and innovative career. Miss Marcy Richardson, we're delighted that she'll join us. Please remember to subscribe to us on YouTube and hit that bell icon for the most up-to-date information on upcoming guests and topics. Like us and share our videos on social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and others as well. So please join us there. Please, if you want to get on our mailing list, you can go to our website at www.jasontram.net, and we have our vault of 85 past episodes and all of our upcoming guests as well. So glad you can join us, and welcome to Marcy Richardson.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So you've been in Brooklyn for the whole COVID period, I understand.
I have. I live in Bushwick, which is a very artsy neighborhood in Brooklyn known for its street art, graffiti, and nightlife scene. And I have been here pretty much this entire time.
How has the arts scene been impacted in your eyes over the last couple of months?
I mean,
Tough question. I'm sorry.
There are no words. It is beyond words. It is beyond, oh, we got impacted. Our entire industry, especially I hail from New York City nightlife, first and foremost for the past 5 years. And our entire scene has been completely and totally 100% decimated, wiped out. One day I was doing a show almost every single night in the city, sometimes 2 per night, at least until, I wasn't going to bed until 2 a.m., 4 a.m. I was busy every single day, 7 to 10 shows a week minimum, all year round, with the exception of a week or two. And then one day, just overnight, I went from that to just nothing.
Wow, it's truly unique. We look at when you look historically at what we're seeing, this is once in a lifetime. We've said before on the show many times that even in 1918 in the Spanish flu, there were no canceled performances at the Metropolitan Opera. I think Broadway probably too. So we're looking at with basically stopping the arts. This is once in a lifetime for sure.
Mind-blowing. And I'll never forget, Company XIV is my home company here in New York. It is a Baroque burlesque theater company. We seat less than 200 people, and we fuse dance, opera, circus arts, and a burlesque to tell these really lavish, beautiful stories. And it's my full-time job. I go there every day, just like anyone who works in an office. And we perform through everything. I mean, illness, which I feel like that'll probably change in the future. Anytime other venues have closed for any reason, we just never stop. We go on no matter what. And when I got the email in March saying Company XIV is planning on proceeding through COVID, and we're going to take extra measures, but we're planning on proceeding. And I read the email and I thought, what? Planning on proceeding? Of course we're planning on proceeding. Like, I can't believe you're even sending this email. Like, we would never even consider closing for any reason. Like, so I just dismissed it. I just thought, I can't believe they're even sending this email. And then, when Broadway closed, that is when I really went into shock. I just panicked. I went for a run immediately to try to calm down. And I got a text from our stage manager saying, are you going to come to rehearsal? Because we had to put in rehearsal. My mind was so frazzled at the threat of us being shut down. I forgot. And thankfully I live a block from the theater, so I just ran there. But I couldn't wrap my head around it. And the day we shut down, I was in denial and completely devastated. And honestly, it's been the toughest pill to swallow of my life, I would say.
Why don't we take a step back in time and tell us about your development as an artist? And did you always know you wanted to be in the arts?
You know, growing up, I took ballet and piano lessons, but I had stage fright. I messed up every recital. I've been practicing a lot. I messed up. I was scared to perform. I knew I could sing, but I didn't take a voice lesson until I was 14. I was hoping, I looked up to Madonna. She was my idol and inspiration. And I thought, you know what, I would love to do what she does. And even though I was really sort of shy and I hadn't broken out of my shell yet, and I took my first voice lesson, and my teacher said, "Wow, you're a coloratura soprano." And I said, "A color what?" And I went from singing, you know, Bette Midler and Madonna to Handel within a matter of weeks. I had never used that part of my range, and I really fell in love with classical music very much. My parents didn't go to the opera or symphony growing up, so I wasn't really exposed to that. But as soon as I got into it, thankfully I was at an amazing fine arts program at the public high school where I went in Grosse Pointe, Michigan. And I didn't know you could study music in college, so from there I learned you could do that. And so I always knew I wanted to do something. I just didn't know what, so it very organically came about.
So you started singing Baroque music at a very early age as well.
Very early, and I loved it very early. I think Baroque music is beautiful and sexy, and it's always fit my voice like a glove, honestly, since the day I picked it up. A lot of people start with the 24 Italian songs and arias, and they honestly were pretty difficult for me because they sat too low in my voice. And while I'm more of a light lyric soprano now, at the time my voice sat extremely high. So I've always loved Baroque music very much, and I went on to get my bachelor's and master's at Indiana University in voice performance before embarking on that. When I first started out, I was embarking on the very traditional opera trajectory that we are all trained to go for. Pay to sings, young artist program. I was at Brevard. I did Central City Opera, young artist programs with Baltimore Opera, Orlando Opera. May they all rest in peace. A lot of companies that didn't withstand the original recession and disaster in 2007 or whatever it was. And I moved to New York probably in 2008 or 9, and have really been on the scene here doing my church gigs, traveling, until I started pole dancing and doing acrobatics in 2010, 10 years ago.
So tell us about this evolution. So you did the traditional opera singer route and were working. I heard you sing, and you're a beautiful light lyric soprano, beautiful you sang a lot of Handel, and you were very successful in that. And you added the pole dancing. So when did you start the Aerialist journey?
Thank you. Yes, I really was doing the very traditional thing with my side gigs on the side, like any other New York City based classical singer. And in 2010, I saw a video of who I now know is a very famous pole dancer, Felix Kane, winning the Miss Pole Dance Australia Championships. And it was so beautiful. I just thought, she looks like something spinning in a music box. And I wish that were me. I wish I could do something so beautiful. As someone who's been passionate about movement and dance and physicality my entire life, it really appealed to me. So the internet gods are always watching, and I got a Facebook ad for pole dancing classes in New York. So I decided to try, and it definitely was not as easy as it looked. And
it doesn't look easy.
I didn't get as good. Yeah. And I didn't get as good as I wanted, as fast as I wanted. It's very difficult. So I bought a pole for my home, which I still have in here. I've had it for 10 years. And the combination of training at home and taking classes over time and also competing. I started competing about 3 years into my journey with the pole sport organization. It's very much like a figure skating competition or gymnastics meet where you make a 4-minute routine and you're judged on artistic merit, physical difficulty, execution, all of those things. And I had a lot of fun with it, but I never intended to include it in my performing life. It was always just meant to be a really fun form of exercise, something for myself, a personal goal. And it really, the combination skill set came about very organically. There's such a big appetite for variety shows and burlesque here in New York. People started asking me, do you ever try this stuff at the same time? At one point, Madonna and her entourage came into town casting people for the Rebel Heart tour, and they found me somehow online and said, hey, will you come and audition for us, sing on the pole, which I had never tried at the time either. And I made it through all these auditions. I was one of 3 pole dancers they put in front of Madonna.
Wow.
And I don't think they prepped her. I don't think they prepped her. Oh, that's nothing. I'll tell you a story later. But I don't think they prepped her for what I was going to do. And so she was kind of looking over at me through her glasses as I was singing in the splits on the pole. And I didn't get the gig, but it kicked off. It really breathed an interesting, fresh new life into my career, all of this stuff. So it was very unexpected, but I'm so happy to be doing what I'm doing because I love it.
Now, I'm also someone, I was a music teacher before I was a conductor professionally, and I kind of just decided one day I want to change my entire life and go a different direction. And when did you, there was a point when all of a sudden the road was before me and I saw it open up and light up and just, there was nothing else to do. How did you know that you were going to start doing something new and kind of changing your focus?
It happened, again, the Madonna audition happened. Then a few other nightlife things happened. One of the first performances in public I ever did here in New York was at this warehouse in Brooklyn where they send out the location like an hour before the event or whatever, and very industrial, no heat, you could see your breath. I show up there, little feral kittens and cats running around all of my costumes and stuff. It was really out of this world.
Sounds like a movie set.
Yeah, it absolutely was like that. But I made sure, I was barely getting paid, and I made sure, I said, I'm going to get video of this at the very least. So I shamelessly, got my phone set up, and I took a very beautiful silhouette video. I was singing Lascia Ch'io Pianga by Handel, which I still do in the air, in the hoop. And from there, Austin McCormick from company XIV, not long after, messaged me. He was looking for a soprano, and at least 5 people threw my hat in the ring. And over the years, a lot of people who had seen my work said, you would be such a great fit for this company. And it just sort of, our paths never really crossed in the right way. And at the time he was looking, a bunch of people threw my hat in. I just had all this fresh media of all of this nightlife and burlesque and aerial work I was doing. And honestly, I think the moment I started working with Austin and company XIV, I felt a change, and I felt the road definitely went in one direction, and it just kept snowballing from there. And I've developed a beautiful relationship with the company ever since, and they've really been my bread and butter, and a very large part of my life since the day I started working with them.
Well, it's amazing you found that opportunity, and it found you, and the synchronicity was there. How many actors and artists are involved in that company?
It really depends on the show. We've done shows with this little, with the cast as small people, to once we get into some of our bigger productions like Nutcracker Rouge, or even our last production that we were doing before the lockdown, 7 Sins, which is based on the 7 deadly sins. I think our cast was up to almost 20 people or something like that. But it feels, with that many people, it feels quite large in the space.
So what are some of the other art forms that are represented in these productions?
Well, Austin is, he graduated from Juilliard in dance, and he has a background of both ballet and Baroque dance. So you're going to see a lot of choreography in the show that is inspired by Baroque court dance and ballet. We have beautiful dancers that are very classically trained. Again, they're coming from Juilliard, they're coming from Alvin Ailey, they're coming from NYU, and a lot of them dance in other styles as well outside of ballet. You see some hip hop dancing in the show, tap specialists we have, and then we've had all sorts of other specialty performers. We have a beautiful trapeze artist. We have we have several beautiful male aerialists and pole dancers. We have other opera singers. We have a beautiful countertenor that works with us. We also represent pop singers as well. So I've worked with rock and roll singers, R&B. Really, what I think is so cool about the company is there's something for everyone. And what I've enjoyed most about it is, especially if you're going in for a musical theater call, you'll see a breakdown, right? And they're looking for someone who's a certain height, with a certain voice type, with a certain look. And with Austin, he looks at everything unique that you have to bring to the table. And he just works with it and he elevates it, and he says, what do you do? Well, let's have you do that. So whenever people say, don't you want to be on Broadway? I say no, because every role I do at Company XIV is tailored to everything that makes me special. I never have to fit into a box. You know, I used to get all these notes when I would sing opera, like, oh, you come on as too aggressive and too strong. And Austin takes that and works with it. He says, oh, you have that going on? Great. Let's do that. You love Baroque music? I'm not going to, so many directors, oh, well, I'm never going to do Baroque operas, so why are you singing this for me? Austin loves Baroque music and he loves it. I love it. So anything that I excel at, I get to do there. So it's what makes the company really unique and special, because they embrace the individuality of each performer entirely.
What an incredible artistic crucible! And Brooklyn's Brooklyn's always been like kind of like the epicenter of this kind of avant-garde kind of melding. It's really wonderful and exciting.
It really is. I feel so lucky to have become a part of something like that, and it's so beautiful to see a company celebrating different body types, you know, different, just diversity, different types of talent. You know, no one has to fit into any one particular box to bring something to the table, and I think it really speaks to people, to be sure.
Opera in its very beginning was all about combining the arts, and this is the opera of today. Obviously, this is kind of the opera of today.
Absolutely. I can't remember what publication it was, but we've had reviewers comment that actually coming to a show at Company XIV is as close to what it would have been like to go to the opera many years ago, when it wasn't a thing where you just sat there in your seat and took it in for 4 hours. You socialized, you ate, you had wine and spirits. There were, you know, in our intermissions, we often have entr'actes that are not technically part of the show. They're just fun, entertaining things that happen during intermission. And that very much comes from Baroque opera. So, you know, we've had people comment that this is as close to what it would have been like before, you know, mixing highbrow with lowbrow, music with dance, with variety. And yeah, I feel really proud to be a part of something that is very much an homage to what that used to be.
So all of your innovative work and your training comes together into this new and unique way of expressing yourselves, and it's led to your career exploding in ways that who would have ever thought? Like, you were in the movie Hustlers. What was it like to be in a mainstream movie with actresses such as Jennifer Lopez, Cardi B, and Lizzo?
It was pretty crazy, and it totally came out of nowhere, because again, I work so full time with Company XIV. And on top of that, Duane Park, which is a burlesque supper club on the Lower East Side for the past 7 years, the Bargeland Follies at the McKittrick Hotel. I am so spread thin. I honestly don't go out for anything. I don't audition. I don't submit for anything. But a casting director slid into my DMs on Instagram and said, we're looking for pole dancers for this movie with J-Lo called Hustlers. And I almost dismissed it, because I thought, oh, I'm sure they just did a search and are messaging every pole dancer they can find in the New York City area. And I responded, and they said, the director asked that we reach out to you specifically. And I came in and I noticed the list of people signing in was very small. And, I came to find out that the costume designer, Mitchell Travers, had been a fan of Company XIV and seen me perform. And he turned the director, Lorene Scafaria, onto my work. So she started following me on social media. And I went in and I just kind of improvised on camera a little bit. And I said the whole time, I said, I'm so happy I came in for you guys, but just so you know, I'm probably not available for this. Like, I don't have time. And and Lorene ended up writing in a small cameo for me that wasn't even in the original script. Again, very small. But she wrote me in, and initially I was so excited. I accepted. I couldn't wait. And then they changed the date and it conflicted with the XIV show. And so I turned it down. I said, I can't do it. And they said, are you sure? I'm like, absolutely. I have no understudy. I can never call out. It is not a thing here. I can't do it. And they said, you really need to call us like right now. So I called and they said, listen, this is not public information, but the reason we had to change the shoot date is because it's the only day Cardi B and Usher come. And I was like, well, I don't know what to tell you. I can't do it. They were like, damn, really? I said, yep. And I hung up the phone and I slept and I was like, shit, like, I think I didn't make the right decision. So, I agonized over it, but thankfully I worked it out with our director and we came up with a game plan, and everyone was so nice on set. Lizzo was, everyone was so approachable. Cardi, Lizzo, J-Lo, just everybody was very welcoming and kind. The director treated me as if I was just as important as anyone else on set. I definitely was not prepared for the waiting around that happens on a movie set. I've never worked on one. So my adrenaline was very high for a very long time. And next time, I hope if I have another opportunity like that again, I would definitely make sure I brought my husband and my dog and books and was prepared for all of this time, because it was a lot of time to be maintaining so much stress and adrenaline, because I was stressed knowing that I was going to be doing the scene with all of these big celebrities, but it turned out great. I'm happy I didn't end up on the cutting room floor, and it was a lovely, lovely experience, and I definitely would be open to something like that again.
Very cool, and getting to work with the stars,
Yeah.
and so your combination of your pole dancing and your opera singing has led to incredible opera experiences as well. Tell us about your book, the couple of the productions that have been highly acclaimed.
Yes, the most recent one was Orfeo, Gluck's Orfeo, which was a production between Opera Columbus and Against the Grain Theatre in Toronto. So it was very well received in Columbus, and then we took it to Toronto, and I actually received a Dora Award, which is the equivalent of a Canadian Tony, for my performance, for Best Female Performance in an Opera for that. So it was very cool. Obviously, I did the role of Amour, and I took it up in the air. I did it in the hoop, and I just love singing with full orchestra, and I love a giant opera hall like that. I love the ceiling height. Everything about it was a beautiful experience, to be sure. It was really exciting to get to bring my skills to a very traditional opera.
How high off the ground were you? Were you off, and how did they combine the two art forms?
I would say probably 20 feet, higher than normal. The nice thing about being in an opera theater is that you can be on a pulley system, and you can get in the hoop from the ground and they can bring you up. And I like to be about as high as possible without blocking the view for the people sitting in the balcony. You don't want to be so high that they can't see you. I also did a featured aerial performance with Virginia Opera in Sampson, directed by my good friend Paul Curran. He kind of called me a couple minutes before the production opened and said, we need a sexy aerialist for the Bacchanal. Can you come do it? And I got to fly pretty high for that as well. And again, with Amour, obviously she's Cupid, right? So it totally makes sense for her to be in the air. And they put me in these adorable wings in a beautiful costume. And and it was very much interpreted as sort of a flying, acrobatic, angelic Cupid.
We have our first question from the audience. This is Evangeline from Toronto, who asks, who said that she loved this performance. I got an email. What she has asked, what is the technique like when you're doing both of these art forms combined, and was it really hard to master?
It wasn't that difficult to master. I think that I'm a very physical person by nature, and when I'm up there doing all this physical movement, my core is so engaged and my body is so engaged that honestly, I find it almost helps my singing. It really, I feel very supported when I'm up there. I think the biggest challenge is managing the breath and the phrases. You certainly don't want to be transitioning in the middle of a phrase. You want to, if you're going to go do a different move, you want to try to do that quickly on a break, maybe if you have 4 bars before you come in again. So it's really a matter of planning. You look at the aria, especially in opera, it's not as loose as if I'm doing a pop song in an operatic way. So I would really have to listen and look at the music and say, okay, I can do my transition on that rest. I can do this other transition on this interlude that's playing here. Okay, I can do this phrase like this, and I'm going to plan out the next phrase in another position. So it's really just pre-planning, but I would say that singing and the vocal support and the breath, it all comes really naturally to me, because I think that the voice and the body, if you're a very physical person, come together and they complement each other very well.
Wow, it's how much of your performance in that particular performance did you choreograph when you were up in the air, or was it done by a choreographer or a director, and how did that process work?
All of it. So I choreograph every routine I do. Of course, all the movement that you see is often informed by an aerial instructor that maybe I've learned a particular flow from, or I do watch a lot of videos for inspiration and to learn new skills. So there are certain poses, moves, flows that feel good in my body. Sometimes I'll try something I see on the internet and I say, oh, that doesn't work for me. And, so I sort of have an arsenal of positions and flows that feel good to me. And whenever I have a new piece of music and I want to create a routine to that, I think about my arsenal, and it's like putting together pieces of a puzzle. What fits with what, how much time do I have in any particular aria to do choreography. So again, it's very much like putting pieces of a puzzle together, things that I already have, but I do that all on my own.
Beautiful. And what are some of the challenges, musical challenges? Can you do fast coloratura? Are there any limitations on what you can do while you're singing and aerializing at the same time?
I have performed the aria "Endless Pleasure" in the hoop, which is by Handel, and it's up tempo, so it does work. I will say that long coloratura phrases, I don't tend to gravitate towards hectic music when I'm doing aerial stuff. I do prefer something that's a little bit more languid and sensual. Yeah, I definitely, while I've done some up-tempo pieces, if given a choice, I do prefer it to be a little bit more calm. I think it's a little bit more suited to the gentle spinning of the apparatus. I think it's definitely easier to handle breath-wise if you're not trying to manage a really long phrase of fioritura. So it is possible, but I do prefer, a little bit more of a chill piece.
I guess there's almost like a ballet dancer's sense of line in your work, and that makes sense on the beautiful, sensual, long melodies, and that's really interesting.
Yes.
Let's jump
into...
I'm
always up for a challenge.
Yeah, great. And
I'm always up for a challenge. If I am going to put a quicker piece in the air, which I have, I just, again, you just got to think about it and make it work.
What's the hardest piece you've done and why?
The hardest piece I've done. Is
Or
this
the
a
hardest
question
routine,
from
or
the?
yeah, I'm just thinking of what's if you'd say in your current arsenal of performances, do you have one piece that is like one of the hardest things, or it's got the hardest elements in it
Yeah.
when you combine the singing and
Okay.
the
Yes.
aerialism?
Yes. Absolutely. So while I do a lot of singing in the lyra, which is a hoop that hangs from the air, I also do routines on the pole, and I will say pole wins me more than any other apparatus. When I get off the pole, I'm breathing as if I've just run a sprint. It really, really, to be honest, it gets me very out of breath. It kind of knocks the wind out of me. It's performing arias on the pole is probably the most difficult thing I've done. And there was one production at Company XIV where we were interpreting the story of the Judgment of Paris, where Paris has the apple, and he has to pick the goddess that he gives it to, and I was playing Athena. And so most of the pieces I do at Company XIV in the air have some sort of a dramatic context to them. And in this case, I was trying to persuade him to award the apple to me. So I sang an operatic version of Skyfall while doing an acrobatic pole routine on a carousel horse, 15 feet in the air. And it was a very dynamic routine. Every time I finished it, every night I thought, why am I doing this to myself? It was very, very difficult. So I think that was probably the hardest routine I've done so far, to be sure, because it was very dramatic and dynamic, and it was on the pole, and I was in a corset. So
A lot of
I would
elements to
say,
manage.
well, everything, yeah, it was difficult. It was difficult, but it was difficult by design, and it was difficult because that fit the character. She's supposed to be the goddess demonstrating strength. So I designed the piece to fit that.
Very exciting, and the channeling your inner Adele. I like that. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Who are some of your favorite pop singers active today?
My favorite pop singers active today. I love Ariana Grande. I think she has an amazing voice, amazing performer. Lizzo, I think, is great fun and fabulous. Madonna, she will always be true to my heart for sure. And I enjoy a lot of popular music. I love The Weeknd, and I also really love hip hop and R&B. I'm a sucker for Doja Cat. I love trap. I would say I have a very eclectic and expansive taste in music.
Now, you said you had another Madonna story. Did you mention
Oh.
you had?
So, okay, so we shut down, right? So everything moves to Zoom. And within 2 weeks of shutdown, I get a call from Suzanne Barch, who's this nightlife icon, since the 80s. She's very much, I would say, responsible for the fame of RuPaul. And she has a documentary called Suzanne Barch on Top on Netflix, which is really interesting if you want to learn more about her life. But I've been working with her for a few years now. And so she calls me and she's like, Marcy, I don't know if you want to do the Zoom birthday party. It's at the Hamptons at Stephen Klein. She's got this accent. She's very hard to understand on the phone. And I really couldn't understand who she was saying. I just said, whatever, Suzanne, like, I'll come do a Zoom birthday. Fine. So my good friend Vinny picks me up, who stage manages and helps her with everything with tech. And we head out to the Hamptons. And Stephen Klein, as I'm kind of Googling, obviously he's a very famous photographer, a lot of Vogue covers, and I see he's shot Madonna on almost every famous shoot she's done. So we show up at his house, and he's got these two huge Great Danes, and it's all very stressful. We showed up too late, and so we're setting everything up, and he's got these beams, so I hung my hoop from a beam, and we got my pole set up, and we're setting everything up, and then Steven says, well, where's Madonna gonna sit?
Whoa.
And I was like, what? Well, of course I have a mask on. So I look over at our stage manager and like we both just like make eye contact, like what? So next thing you know, I'm in this basement bathroom with another performer, Joy Arias, who is in Zumanity, lovely nightlife performer. And Madonna pokes her head in and she's got her cane and everything. And Stephen's like, oh yeah, these are the performers. And I was like, I am in the Twilight Zone. I'm in the Twilight Zone.
Wow.
And I already performed for her before. It was so weird and crazy that I wasn't even nervous. It just was like, it just was too much. And then I went upstairs and she's with her entourage and her kids from Malawi are playing on my equipment and swinging around the pole and my hoop. It just was crazy. So I did the performance. There's really not much more to it, you know. I wanted that moment where I could tell her, you've inspired me my whole life. I am who I am because of you. But she sort of didn't seem super receptive. So they always say, you know, don't meet your hero. She paid attention. I you know, was very polite, but I think, you know, you got to know to read the room. And I sort of think she just wanted to just enjoy the performance and be with her entourage and her family. So I just sort of kept my distance, but I did good.
Nothing like meeting and performing,
yeah.
presenting your art for such an icon and an incredible
Oh,
performance
she was
artist.
6 feet away. I just was
Amazing.
like, I would have been nervous if I had had time to be, but I didn't. It came about too quickly.
Isn't that the way a lot of the biggest performances we do? You really don't have time to, because you're doing your job and you're doing what you're trained to do, and everything you think about later afterwards.
The amazing thing is, back when I did this audition for her, I had not really dipped my toe in very much. At one point, they asked me to put on heels, and I said, "Oh no, I don't want to get messed up." And of course, since then, at Company XIV, they make me perform in crazy heels all the time. I'm so experienced now. So the really cool thing about all this was I was doing two pieces that have been in my wheelhouse for years. You know, Chandelier, which I do in the hoop, and Jewel Song, which I do in the pole. And I've been doing those numbers for 5 years now. So it was exciting to, you know, whether she enjoyed it or not, it was exciting to be getting to do things that are totally comfortable for me, totally in my element. So I can say that was a really cool opportunity.
Amazing. Who are some of the other stars you've performed for in your work with Company XIV?
Well, being on the New York City nightlife scene, it is really cool. A lot of people unexpectedly show up. Kelly Ripa comes to a lot of our things at XIV. Bon Jovi showed up at one point with his wife. Ice-T and
cool.
Coco. One time we were looking up like, wow, who bought all this alcohol? Like, who spent all this money? It was Ice-T. At the Barchland Follies, AOC has come. I have a really cool picture with her. Misty Copeland has come to see us at XIV just in the weeks before lockdown. What is Perez Hilton? So there's so many more, but we get a lot of people that come through, and it's Carson Cressley is really kind and has come to see us a bunch of times. Tommy Tune. So you never know who's going to show. Oh, Susan Sarandon. I'm like,
that's New York, right? It's the center of the cultural world.
You never know. You know, you just never know who's going to show up. So I'm always one of those people who's excited to know that some press or a fun celebrity is in the audience. I think it's a lot of fun.
So now COVID hits, everything comes to such a grinding and painful halt. What discoveries have you made in this period as things have changed so much? What have you been doing during this period, and what discoveries have you made about yourself and your art?
Well, initially, my initial goal was I'm such a routine-oriented person. It sort of drove me into a panic to think, what do I do? So when shutdown first happened, I made it a point to almost every day or every other day get on the pole, which was the only thing I had access to at the time in my living room, and just do something beautiful. It was really helpful for me to do peaceful piano music and do a minute, maybe some new moves I've never done before. And it gave me a personal goal, and it also provided my followers with something beautiful to watch. I also really started to grasp onto Governor Cuomo's daily press conferences. It really felt like my only normal thing and my only everyday thing, and the only way I could learn about like what is happening, what is going to happen to us. And so I started doing a sexy summary of the press conferences every day. So a lot of people were tuning in to get some of their news in a more lighthearted way through that. So I did that
Heaven knows we
for
all needed that.
for
That's fun.
yes, yes. So for many months I did that. So I kind of created this routine for myself where I made sure I got on the pole as much as I could. I made sure I got dressed, did my makeup, watched my news conference, and provided some entertainment for friends and followers. And once the conferences sort of started to die down, the weather started to warm up. My husband, thankfully, was so helpful in getting me rigged outside from my balcony. So we've got a pulley system. Thankfully, I'm so thankful I have an outdoor space here in Bushwick, and I share it with my neighbors who are beyond supportive and tolerant of my shenanigans in the backyard. But I got the hoop up, so I started making videos in the hoop and in the silks. I've also been running a few times a week because I just thought, this is so bad. It would just add so much insult to injury if I lost my skill set that I've worked so hard for after all this. So I've really worked hard to like stay healthy in body and mind because I want to go back to work, contrary to some of these politicians who say, oh, find something else to do, or all these people don't want to work. Excuse me?
Yeah, we've trained our whole lives
Look
to do
at
this.
me.
We've trained our lives for this stuff.
Nobody wants to work. More than this. Like cannot be more. I could not be more proof. So I've worked really hard to just be ready to go. And in August, I've done some work with Alpine Theater Project, doing an operatic burlesque variety show out there on like the 2 weeks, 1 or 2 weeks off I have per year. From XIV, I've gone to work there. And so they did a really beautiful production out in the woods in Montana. They set up this aerial rig out there. And so when I got back to New York, I thought, well, okay, maybe outside is the only option. And shortly thereafter, Duane Park, which is a high-end burlesque supper club I've worked at for many years, they are a restaurant. So for people who don't know, performances are banned here in New York. You cannot buy tickets to a show, you cannot sell tickets to a show, and you can't have a show. You can have incidental ambient performance. So Duane Park, we've been on an intersection that's too busy, but in August they said you can apply for a permit if the business next to you isn't using the sidewalk. So they did, and we opened the sidewalk. You'll see in the video after this, Duane Park called and said, do you want to try the sidewalk thing with the dinner seating we're going to do and call it ambient performance? Maybe we could rig you from this fire escape. And I said, oh, I'm already rigged from a fire escape in my backyard. I'll come in and do it. So I personally showed up and I went on a ladder and I rigged myself from a fire escape. And we've been doing dinner seatings on the weekends, 2 per night usually, where we have a little 3 or 4 piece band on the sidewalk and we have people eating socially distanced outside. And then different performers. We have a contortionist, a couple burlesque performers, myself in the hoop. We come out and we offer sidewalk entertainment. And I have done this in 20-degree wind chill.
Ooh.
It feels pretty fine. 40, 50 is a luxury. But honestly, I'm not cold. I'm only out there for a few minutes. But honestly, that opportunity came about at just the right time because my mental state was really, I've suffered from a lot of depression and anxiety through all this. And just to have a place to go, to be around other artists and practice my craft has been a blessing. On top of that, I've also been producing socially distanced shows in my freaking backyard. So with my neighbor's blessing, I have done 3 shows all once a month. We did October, November, and even December. I do 12 seats max in my yard, and you get maximum distance, much more than outdoor dining in New York. I charge a lot, but this is my house. This is where I sleep, and we provide unlimited alcohol and maximum distance. And I usually have 3 or 4 other performers with me who you'll get to see if you watch some video after this, as well as a bar lighting. I have a backdrop. I've got my husband running sound, on our little amp. And I think, it's the closest thing to a real show you're going to get. So that's been a blessing. It's been very stressful because I don't like to produce. I'm not a producer, but I feel very, very, very fortunate and lucky to, between Duane Park and my backyard, I can say I've been eking out live performance in some way, because I think it's important. And I also think it's important to lead by example and show people that there is a way forward. And I found it very confusing this entire time about what's deemed essential and what's not. What's allowed to operate and what's not. Like,
that conversation is so important. Is what's essential. And if you think the artistic life of New York City and Brooklyn and all these places, if the arts aren't essential, I don't know what is.
Right. It's really confusing to me, like that you can sit shoulder to shoulder with people on the subway or on an airplane for 4 hours, or be crammed into the post office, waiting in line like I have. And we couldn't, XIV, we could not be more adaptable. We are performers that perform in masks we can't see in, corsets we can barely move in, heels that are difficult to dance in, smoke and fog. I mean, if there's anyone who can adapt, it is us. And so I do feel like it's unfortunate that we haven't been given the opportunity to perform in some way under guidelines and restrictions, because I feel like we could do it. And I honestly feel like we could do it more safely than a lot of what I'm seeing on public transport and even in doctors' offices where I've been, and it's been crowded. It's very for me.
Well, congratulations. You're at the cutting edge of your art form and you're making it happen even under these extraordinary circumstances. You're out there doing it. You're keeping your audiences engaged, and you're yourself engaged as an artist, and that's really to be commended, that you're taking the initiative to do these things and learning the production elements as well while you're going. It's really, really admirable.
Thank you. Well, and I'm so thankful and surprised at, there are people in New York, and they want to keep the art scene alive. They want to have something to come back to. So I have received so much support from arts patrons here in New York and beyond. They've shown me so much love and care, and so it's given me hope that there is going to be a future here. There will be something to come back to. We are going to bounce back. The support I've been shown, I believe it 100%.
Yeah, New York will always be an artistic center. And I think once we open back up, there's going to be an explosion of creativity, and we're all going to be scrambling to find our how we fit that new normal. But we can't wait for those days to come.
I can't wait either.
How can people find out more about your work and your social media, and how can we find out what you're up to?
Well, if you are on Instagram, I am Opera Gaga there. That is my voice teacher's nickname for me from a long time ago, Trish McCaffrey.
Shout out to Trish McCaffrey.
Woo, Trish! Badass! And I haven't seen her in a long time. She's been shut inside this entire time, but we do WhatsApp all the time. So I love that she kind of follows my work and that we keep in touch. So I'm Opera Gaga on Instagram. I have a website, which is not updated right now, but normally it is www.marcyrichardson.com, Marcy with a Y. And also I have been selling crazy, gorgeous, bedazzled sparkle masks on my merch website, which is thesingingarealist.com. And I make them by hand. They're gorgeous and glamorous. So if you're looking for something fabulous, go to thesingingarealist.com. I'm on Facebook. My profile is public, Marcy Richardson. And Twitter, I'm Opera Gaga as well. Not as many people are as active on Twitter there, but yeah, there are a lot of ways to find me. A quick Google, and I'm right there.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time and for joining us. Really, such an innovative and creative person. It was great to reconnect, and we wish you all success as things open up again.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, everyone, for supporting the arts and for tuning in. And I really and truly look forward to performing for you guys live as soon as humanly possible.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us on Music Matters Music Matters Jason Tramm. We want to thank you. Please remember to subscribe to us on YouTube and hit that bell icon for the most up-to-date information on upcoming guests and topics. Tomorrow we have a show at 6 o'clock with renowned conductor Diane Witchery, and we're so delighted that she's joining us. Please remember to join our mailing list. Go on our website at www.jasontram.net to also check out our 85 past episodes and all of our upcoming guests and topics. We have a lot of great ones coming up in January, and we want to thank you for joining us. And remember, keep music alive.
Come here, Watts. Bum, ba-da-dum.
Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa. Welcome to the one and only live backyard show in New York City. Woo! How y'all feeling? You ready to have a good time? Yeah!
Duplex and checks. Sign your X on the line, Santa cutie, and hurry up down the chimney tonight.
Knocking. Is that you, Santa Claus? Sure is dark out. Ain't the slightest spark out. Pardon my clacking jaw.